Okay, as expected, Uber rewrites contracts with drivers outside of London to avoid paying millions of pounds to the Exchequer. This slippery move came as the rule was announced in November's budget that private hire vehicle operators such as Uber and other ride-hailing apps will no longer be able to use the tour operators margin scheme, that's TOMS for short, to significantly reduce the VAT they pay on fares, and this came into effect a few days ago. But just to note, this applies to Uber drivers outside of London. And just for the purpose of contrast, I will outline the difference in legislation that relates to London. It says, under the Private Hire Vehicles London Act 1998, a private hire operator is defined as someone who makes provision for the invitation or acceptance of private hire bookings or accepts those bookings. And Section 2 of the Act expressly states that nobody may make provision for or accept a private hire booking in London unless they hold a London private hire operator's licence, and that obligation cannot be undertaken by drivers acting alone. For the purpose of contracting with passengers as principal, Transport for London's own guidance, drawing on a High Court interpretation, makes this explicit. A licensed London private hire operator who accepts a booking from a passenger must enter into the contract as principal with that passenger. It's contrary to the statutory role of a private hire operator and contrary to public safety, and that should always be a factor, shouldn't it, for the operator to shift responsibility for the contract onto someone else, such as the driver. Now, outside of London, under the agency model, drivers make a contract directly with their passengers, making it their responsibility to charge any VAT due on the fare, whilst Uber, acting as the agent, only adds VAT on its commission. Let's face it, Uber's agency model is a scam. Full stop. Let us be clear. You cannot be principal if you don't set the price. Uber sets the fare, Uber decides surge pricing, Uber controls discounts, Uber collects money, Uber issues refunds, Uber enforces compliance, Uber punishes drivers who refuse jobs. Drivers don't negotiate, they don't set prices, they don't control customers, they don't control payment. So what exactly are the drivers the principal of? This isn't a grey area. Under agency law, price control is control, and Uber has it. Total, absolute, non-negotiable control. Calling drivers principals isn't innovation, it's misclassification by design. Why? Because it lets Uber dominate the market like an operator whilst dumping tax and regulatory liability, especially VAT, onto people who have zero pricing power. That's not an agency model, that's regulatory arbitrage. Uber wants the power of a supplier without the responsibilities of one. And the only reason this fiction survives is because regulators have allowed it to. Strip away the branding, strip away the buzzwords, and the truth is obvious. If you control the price, the payment, and the rules, you are the principal. Why does this matter? Because it is not abstract. It is money. Fares outside of London are believed to account for roughly half of Uber's 5.2 billion UK revenue. That means about 2.5 billion of turnover is being structured to sit outside proper VAT liability. And translate that, and we are talking about hundreds of millions of pounds that should be going into the public purse, but isn't. Now, I could go on all day about this, but the fact of the matter is, no other company would be allowed to get away with this. And when I hear people say, we must have cheaper Uber rides, they are essentially saying underfunded hospitals and overstretched public services should subsidise their minicab habit. Make Uber pay.